Youth, of course, are the people who are going to face the worst aspects of climate destruction and climate heating. It's their future, so they're in the lead. They're the ones whose future it's about. They deserve to be in the lead. They are in the lead. They are taking action. Our job is to help them out and support them and provide support.
Hello. Thank you so much for checking out Earth Care, the interview series that's dedicated to understanding the ways we can care for the Earth and each other. I'm your host, Sarah Christie, and I'm on a mission to make climate change an approachable and not so overwhelming conversation for everyone. On this podcast, we meet climate heroes, activists, experts, entrepreneurs, and get their take on how we can help save the planet. And during this episode, we're learning how to do that from the perspective of senior citizens who are taking climate action. Nick DiCarlo is the co-chair of SCAN, which stands for Seniors for Climate Action Now. Nick and I met at a climate rally back in September at Queen's Park in Toronto. This was in support of the 7 youth activists who were taking the Ontario provincial government to court because of climate inaction. Now, this was also my first introduction to the organization as a whole. So I'm going to paint the picture for you. People were gathering outside of Queen's Park, and from a distance, we heard all these noisemakers cheering, chanting, and in marched Seniors for Climate Action Now with this massive banner. They had protest signs, they had protest shirts. Now, I attended this rally alone, and one commonality that comes up so often when talking about climate action is how paralyzed you can become as an individual trying to understand how you can truly help, right? Seeing this group of senior citizens cheering their way to the rally as a collective group gave me chills. It was such a welcomed reminder that we are just one of many people concerned about the state of our climate and are ready to take action to protect it. So, who are Seniors for Climate Action Now? What's the backstory behind the organization, and how can others get involved? Let's find out. Here it is, my Earth Care conversation with co-chair Nick DiCarlo. Thank you so much for being on Earth Care.
Thank you. It was nice to hear. Thank you very much.
Can you give us a bit of an introduction into the organization and, who are Seniors for Climate Action Now?
Yeah, well, we formed about a little over 2 years ago, and it's seniors who choose to identify themselves as seniors. And our objective is Climate Action Now, is in the title. And we've been doing a number of things, a critique of the federal government policy and a series of educational webinars, a platform that outlines what we see as being important if we're going to really address the issue of climate change. And our objective is to get as many seniors as possible involved in the climate movement and to put that message to young people that we're here with you and support you and want to be part of your movement. And we also want to participate with other environmental organizations to build a unity. And I would say in a few words, it seems that there's a huge movement, but we're not all working together, and we have to.
Absolutely. That's so important because I think there is a collective goal in mind that we're all trying to get to. So why not work together on it? What kind of webinars do you offer?
Well, we've done webinars on everything from critique of some of the Ford government policies to issues around nuclear energy to I'm just trying to get support for the indigenous peoples. And there's others as well. We're just planning one on the climate crisis in South Asia, as well as possibly one on the climate crisis in the Caribbean as a way of trying to develop work with people in those communities, in those diasporas here in Canada.
Wow. That's so important. Now, what about you personally? Why did you join the organization?
Well, I joined because I guess I felt I had to do something. I've been an activist my whole life, and I was retired, and I didn't know where and how I would get involved. And so the fact that this organization was formed allowed me to have a place to intervene in the climate movement. It also is an important demographic. We've discovered pretty quickly that there are a huge number of seniors who are experienced, who care, who want to be involved and want to do something. And that demographic is a large part of the population. So if we're able to mobilize that to be part of what's happening, hopefully it'll make a difference.
You said you've been doing activism your whole life. What does that look like for you?
Well, I started out, supporter and influenced by the civil rights movement in the 60s when I was quite young, and got involved in student politics, and then eventually worked in a union and a workplace, and was elected as a representative in places I worked. and became president of a local. And then from there, I worked for a national union for 17 years.
I was checking over the website, and it speaks a lot about Canada's responsibility for global warming. And I think that such an issue we run into consistently in Canada is that American politics make headline news. And so it's always on the back burner, the destruction that's happening in our own backyard. Can you touch on some of the changes that the organization wants to see from our Canadian government officials?
Well, the first thing is that it has to treat the emergency as if it is an emergency, that it actually has to seriously grapple with the problem. So the most recent example is hurricane, well, I don't know if it's technically a hurricane, but Fiona, and the impact it had on the East Coast. We've seen the impact of climate on the West Coast. We've seen it in the North. And yet the Canadian government is still building pipelines, still subsidizing oil, still promoting solutions that foster the use of fossil fuels rather than, stop it. So we'd like to see an emergency action that stops the use of fossil fuels, starting with ending subsidies, ending exploration, eventually shutting down its use entirely, replacing it with renewables, but also reorienting the society in a way that creates jobs through caring, not through use of fossil fuels, but through use of building hospitals, housing, senior care homes, the type of things that will create jobs for people that mean we'll have a different relationship both to each other and hopefully to nature as well.
Now, as someone who has been an activist for your life, what keeps you hopeful?
What keeps me hopeful is people, I guess, in a nutshell. The kind of destruction that's going on, the failure of governments to take action, are reasons for despair. I mean, I appreciate that because often I'm on the edge of that. But my experience with people, and you can see it just in the reaction to the Fiona, again, that example, people are coming together to support the people who are impacted. That's the basic nature of a human society, that it recognizes that when there's a crisis, we come together and we help each other out. And I truly believe that's what we will do in addressing the climate crisis. We have no choice. We have to address it, and we will. But in order to do that, people have to understand what the fact that the government isn't taking action, that a lot of the policy is fluff, not substance. And so we have a big job to do, educating about what what's really necessary to solve the problem.
And now we met at a youth-led movement. So for Seniors for Climate Action Now, what is the significance of getting out there and supporting the youth-led movements that are at such the forefront of this climate justice and the climate justice movement?
Young people always, and particularly now, they think about the future, and they care, and they get involved, and they don't just think, they act. And Greta Thunberg is a perfect example of somebody who didn't just see a problem, but said, I'm going to do something about it. And youth, of course, are the people who are going to face the worst aspects of climate destruction and climate heating. It's their future. And, so they're in the lead. They're the ones whose future it's about. They deserve to be in the lead. They are in the lead. They are taking action. Our job is to help them out and support them and provide support. Doesn't mean we're not affected too, because we are. But we're particularly motivated by the fact that the future belongs to the young people. And we have a responsibility to act, to do something about it.
So how can people get involved? If, I know you off the top of the interview, you mentioned you want as many seniors getting involved as possible. How can they reach out?
Well, first thing is, if you go to our website, there's a button there to join our organization. We have a number of committees that are active: a climate justice committee, a cultural committee that writes plays and does music, a campaign committee. I'm just trying to think of all the committees. We have a media committee. So there's many committees that people can be involved in, and we have campaigns. So we have a number of campaigns. This Saturday we're going to support the big demonstration around Highway 413. We'll be doing some work on the COP26. There's lots of things to be done. We have people who are particularly good at analysis and political critique, and there's work to be done there. We have people who are, like I said, active on the cultural front. There's work to be done there. We want to do education in communities. So if people are interested at all in talking to their neighbors and developing material to do that, that's the next stage that we want to get to, is being able to do on the ground work, building the momentum and building support.
Wow.
There's plenty of room to be involved, and just come and join us.
Wow. Yeah. Something for everyone, truly. And something that has been so special about Earth Care is just learning and discovering all of these new, well, first of all, new people, but new organizations that are stepping up to, protect our planet. So that in and of itself is also so hopeful. So I was really so happy to meet you and see Seniors for Climate Action Now in action. That was really quite special.
Well, thank you very much. That was what we hoped for. It's really nice to hear that it had that impact.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing your time with Earth Care.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for checking out that episode of Earth Care and letting this podcast be a part of your day. Since you made it this far, here's a little sneak peek into the conversation we're having next week.
Getting to instant or automatic accommodation would be kind of the goal. So you don't have to ask for a bike lane because your city policy says on a roadway of this size with this volume of traffic requires this as your minimum standard for biking and pedestrians.
Until then, we can also connect online at Earth Care Show on Instagram and TikTok. Head there to give those accounts a follow. And hey, if you have time, leave a review, message me with a review. I'd love to know what's on your mind, what's been clicking with you, and what topic you'd like to learn more about. You can also write to me on the website, earthcareshow.com. I'm your host, Sarah Christie, and the goal of this podcast is to get us talking about climate change. So let's chat.